To Bushy Brown Comics. I'm your host Q, and today I will be uploading my first video to the channel. Here we will cover comic books, old and new. Today we will be starting off with Luthor by Brian Azzarello, and the Luthor is part of the DC Black Label, the adult storytelling. They're one-off stories. Luthor, along with Joker, are some of the more popular ones. Joker being a little bit more the popular from the perspective. And these books, particularly, I enjoy them from their perspectives, from the villains, and how they perceive themselves to their antithesis. So with Luthor, Superman being his antithesis, and the story is a point of view from the perspective of Lex Luthor and how he views himself as the hero and Superman is the villain. Now, if you're not familiar with Lex Luthor, or you do from the old Superman movies or comics or anime TV series, Luthor is not somebody you should trust or do any dealings with. He will lie, cheat, and steal to get his way and do whatever. He will run you over. He'll throw you under a bus. He is not somebody you should have any dealings with. So to get into the story, not a very long story. It opens up with Luthor talking to the janitor, Mr. Levin. They're just chatting it up in his at LexCorp, and he's just telling him how his son is always cutting school, but when he is there, he's very smart and very good at science. So, as a gift to Mr. Levin, he rewards his son with a parting gift to be able to go to the science school if he finishes his grades with an A. So we move fast forward from there. We get introduced to Mona, who is the assistant of Lex Luthor at this time, and she's more or less, kind of real flirtatious with him, but Lex Luthor's too locked in with his work and his idealism of how he views Superman. And they get into a conversation, not a very long conversation, and just kind of how does she view him as Superman versus how he sees Superman. And to Luthor, Superman has been gifted with the idea of upholding hope, truth, justice, and the American way, which is the slogan of Superman. And just kind of just talking to her about how maybe how she feels about how she fantasizes or think that he'd be the guy to swoop her off her feet more or less. And going from there, we go over into some of the dealings that Luther has behind the scenes. One of these dealings is with his hitman named Orr, who was hired more or less to save this doctor who was captured by some gangsters more or less, and Orr took them out. And as protection and as a favor to Lex Luthor, he will be on his bankroll working on a project for him. So, fast forward from there, we go into Luthor talking with Mona again and how she's going to this ball attending. And he wants her to allow Mr. Levin's son to get into the school project and consider it a favor on his behalf. And from there, we go into the next portion of the story where we find out that Lex Luthor is working on another project, Project Hope. And Project Hope is Lex Luthor's one of his earlier creations of an attempt at something to replace Superman. It's a female robot. She's currently, in the early stages, so she's not complete yet. But they do have a short conversation. Luthor ends up needing is on a board meeting, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the union workers. So they're going to hire them to do a project for one day. Basically, for opening day, they supposed to be a profit organization. However, Luther pitches the idea: what if we treat it as a nonprofit? So basically, the union workers would do the work for them for opening day, and then once the job is complete, they're just going to cut them out and not have to pay them. The union chief or leader, he is not on board with that idea. So Luthor again has Orr on the scene. They go up to the construction site, and he basically persuades him more or less by beating him with a sledgehammer and threatening to basically kick him off the roof if he doesn't agree to change his mind on his decision. And Lex Luthor's glad to hear this news as things are starting to go in his favor. And from here, we transition over back to Lex Luthor, who is on his way to Gotham City to meet with none other than Bruce Wayne himself. And the idea of this meeting that he has with them is on business, of course. And he pitches the idea to Bruce Wayne, more or less, of how he sees Superman and the threat that he poses to humankind, to the humans as a whole. And what he means is that think of it as a storm that can be unpredictable. If you ever seen the movie Batman vs Superman, Lex is very similar to how Batman's fear of, sure, he may be a good guy today, but what if he decides to be a bad guy tomorrow? How will we defend ourselves and be able to defend ourselves as humanity? So we get a few frame shots here and there of Batman's encounter with Superman. And from just this one encounter from a few frames, Superman is basically embarrassing Batman in his home turf, more or less. And we do get a little frame, a little quick Easter egg of Poison Ivy that is on the scene at this restaurant dinner of this meeting. No dialogue or anything; she's in the scene. And Luthor has an idea to basically tell Bruce he would like to use his Thomas Wayne's lab research for a project. In exchange, he is giving Bruce Wayne a sample of kryptonite to do whatever he pleases to do with it. And first, originally, Bruce Wayne does not agree to this. He's actually against the idea of needing the kryptonite or to this deal that Lex has until we go back to another point of Superman and Batman encounter where Batman is basically getting embarrassed for the second time, if not in the same night. And he comes back to the Batcave, beaten on, bloodied and bruised up from Superman, and it comes to terms and agree with Lex on a deal. So Bruce Wayne will get the kryptonite. Lex Luthor will get the lab research of Thomas Wayne, and then go fast forward from there. We go into the introduction of Hope to the world as she is finally done. And one of the other backdoor deals that Lex has is he has Orr in contact to make a deal with Toyman. Toyman is part of Superman's rogue gallery, basically a guy who basically designs a bunch of killer toys, more or less. And as he strikes a deal with him, the Toyman receives a letter package he believes is from Orr. And we don't get the specification on what the deal or what was done that he was given, but Orr ends up running into Toyman at a hot dog stand, and the Toyman just thanks him for the package that he gave him, and Orr's just confused because like, I didn't give you any package or letter. Come to find out, a jewelry shop was blown up, and on the news reports that jewelry shop was attached to a daycare center, which killed 28 adults and around 68 children. And what this did was this was part of Lex's backdoor dealings as to create catastrophes to have Hope show up on the scene and be show up and be the hope, and in the name Hope, to be that hope to help on the scene and kind of bring peace and order back to the area. There have been times where Superman has shown up at LexCorp, just kind of just staring at him. And from Lex's perspective, Superman just looks like this evil entity just flying around, um, and he just can't stand for it. Mona, of course, she comes back on the scene, gives her thoughts, and they have a conversation with Lex about how she feels about the idea of hope, and just Lex not giving her any time of day because she just kind of wants to knock boots with him, and he's just not having it. But he's more invested in his project Hope, and he decides to have an intimate moment with her at some point before we come around to our conclusion. Um, so as the ties on loose ends, Luthor has Orr on the run now. He from his hitman. So that's the end of him. He just kind of disappears. We don't know if he survived or not. He's out of the picture. So Superman goes to confront the Toy Man at his factory, and he just disposes of his toy killer robots, and then comes into contact with Hope on the scene, who swoops in and grabs the Toy Man, flies him up to the air, and behind the scene we see that Lex is the one controlling Hope, and decides to dispense justice by having Hope drop the Toy Man to his death. Luckily, Superman is there to prevent the death of the Toy Man. Um, and then Superman and Hope get into a confrontation, of course. And this is more like a one-sided fight. Hope is doing her best, but again, it's Superman here, so she ends up getting damaged a little bit. She gets her licks in on Superman, and we see behind the scenes that Luthor is setting off the self-destruct sequence of Hope, and hoping it kills Superman. It doesn't work. Big explosion, and Hope is destroyed. That's the end of her. And then we come back to Lex Tower, where Superman is just sitting outside of Lex Tower, just watching Lex Luthor just talk the whole time. Superman, this whole book, did not say a word. He doesn't have one line. He just looks at him. He goes do something, heroic, and he just scolds Luthor, and then he just leaves. So that was a quick wrap up explanation of Luthor. Um, I hope you guys like it. This is really cool to really do my first video. I'm excited to do more, and I definitely hope to get some more content out to you as soon as possible. Y'all enjoy and see you in the next video.